This is the Borderless Crypto Podcast. Hello everyone, I'm your host, George Manlov, and in this series I bring you exceptional entrepreneurs, investors, hustlers, and thought leaders from the cryptocurrency and fintech space. Today I'm talking to Bill Ottman, the founder and CEO of Minds.com, the social media platform which, unlike Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, is 100% open source, meaning that their software code is completely public. That's right, anyone can read their code, they can see how the platform works, they can see what data the platform is gathering, and how they use it. What's more, Minds.com leverages the blockchain technology with its ERC20 token, which users earn by contributing to the platform, and they can then spend to promote their content on the platform. Among many other things, Bill shares first, what sets Minds.com apart from existing social media giants. Second, he gives us a recipe, step by step, how to build your profile and grow your followers on Minds.com so that you get way more engagement than what you're getting on Facebook, Twitter, etc. Third, Bill provides us with a list of open source products which fully respect your rights and do not sell your user data. Please note that anything that I or my guests say in these talks is for informational purposes only and should not be treated as investment advice. And although during daylight, I'm part of the team behind the crypto lending platform Nexo, at night, when I do these talks, I share only my personal thoughts, which in no way represent Nexo's opinions. Now it's time to get the podcast started in 3, 2, 1... Bill, before you tell us a little more about Minds.com and how you're trying to disrupt the social media space, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself, where you come from, what did you do before Minds.com, and how did you enter into the cryptocurrency space?
Sure. Thanks for having me. So I started out actually in an unexpected place. I studied English and music in university and was much more into live events. And so mine its first incarnation was called Gathering in the Minds, and we would do these live forums that were sort of mixed with the music festival atmosphere. I've also organized music festivals on a large scale. And I've always been pretty fascinated by bringing people together, particularly for different types of advocacy. I've always been sort of obsessed with freedom of information, transparency, both in governments, corporations, and I was also very disillusioned early on, even just after college in 2009, about the effects of social media on human psychology, and how there was sort of negative consequences of everyone being on Facebook and whatnot. And so I did not really like social media up front. But then I went down the rabbit hole of realizing that there's essentially different worlds of technology. On one end of the spectrum, you have free and open source software, encryption, decentralization, these types of frameworks. And then on the other hand, you have more proprietary, closed source, surveillance-based tech. And so once I realized that, I realized that there's so much good to be done on the internet. And it's actually very essential for humanity to take back the internet and not let these gigantic companies control everything. So that's what we've been doing. I mean, we knew that there needed to be an open source social framework. We've seen open source encyclopedias rise up, CMSs, blogs, but it hasn't really happened in the social space yet. And then, simultaneously, I discovered Bitcoin in probably 2011 maybe, and we've been playing with integrations with it. And then we sort of realized that there is immense potential in fusing together crypto and social media. And actually, that is a great way to bring it to more of a critical mass.
Okay. And how did you discover about Bitcoin?
Probably just some articles online, but then I started hanging out at the Bitcoin Center in New York City. I got some, I started paying for dinners with it and spreading it around. And we had a Bitcoin wallet in our app for a little while, but we took it out because it wasn't really as good of an implementation as we want. We're hopefully going to be bringing it back this year, along with more multi-currency support. But, I don't know if I can pinpoint it actually.
And then, so walk me through the process of deciding to build a social media network. Quite honestly, I think this is super complicated. Many people have these ideas of like, I'm just going to build, like have this vision that it's not so hard. It's like, oh, you just copy the features of existing networks out there. But I think it's super complicated. And you probably also need quite a significant amount of capital, both financial, but also intellectual capital, which costs money. So what was the process? Did you start alone? Did you start with a few people? Did you raise capital? How did it go?
Yeah, it's super complex. It's taken, we started the company in 2011. So, we're 8 years in and we're still trudging up the hill. But I started it just me. And then I met our CTO, Mark Harding, who, has been instrumental in piecing together a bunch of really essential open source social frameworks. And we basically started with a framework called ELG, which is a great tool, but it's not really scalable. So we ripped out MySQL and put in Cassandra, which is more of a scalable NoSQL database. And then we completely rewrote the whole front end in Angular. And then, we brought in great tools like Elasticsearch and React Native and Redis. And, the list goes on. Standing on the shoulders of giants is really how we see the world. And most all apps, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or whoever, they are standing on the shoulders of giants. They exist because of free and open source software. They used it to build their apps. They just chose not to share their final result. We do share all of our software with everyone. So, it's really hard. We raised money from friends and family at first, and then we did an equity crowdfunding round in 2017 where we raised $1 million from 1,500 members of our community, which was amazing. And now they all actually have stock in Minds. So we really are sort of quasi community owned corporation. And then we did a Series A with Medici Ventures, which is a blockchain focused group in last year. And that has been huge. So we've been able to scale more and hire more developers and admins and people focused on crypto specifically. And but it's been a very long road, and we continually are facing challenges with, whether it's algorithms on the big social networks. We've even run into some censorship issues. It's a battlefield.
Okay. On the side of you raising funds and building this thing for a really long time, basically you said 8 years.
Yes.
And how big is it today? So how many users, I guess, you have?
We have like 1.75 million users registered.
And so for 8 years, when I compare this or I think of the really big successful networks, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, most of them probably, they have this exponential type of growth. They start fast, they move very fast, they raise shitloads of venture capital, and they just grow exponentially and throw a bunch of money in so they can attract as many users as possible. They can then gather the data of those users, right? And then at some point, once they have a big enough pie of users and of user data, they can start monetizing this. In your case, let me, so to say, play devil's advocate here. You're moving quite slowly, or at least that's what it looks from the side, and you are not gathering consumer data, or you are, correct me if that's wrong.
Yeah, let me walk you through. So basically, yes, our growth is a little bit slower, but our growth is also slower because we don't spy on people. So the major apps have been able to achieve their network effects because they're dipping into everybody's contact book, spying on you. There's many manipulative tactics that they use to grow, which we're not willing to use. So we're sort of putting this obstacle in front of ourselves voluntarily because we believe in protecting people's digital rights and taking the long road. And it's going to be a longer road because, yes, they were able to achieve. There weren't as many social networks back then. There are more now. There's all kinds of new challenges, but we keep seeing organic growth. We're not even spending any money on advertising, and we're still growing. So there is a demand for this. It's going to be much more challenging, but it also feels inevitable that something more community focused that protects privacy and rewards users, it's coming, because why wouldn't it? People aren't just going to accept being abused and surveilled for the rest of their lives. I think that we're all addicted to these platforms, and they do provide important communication services. But eventually, if you have the option, one communication tool that exploits you and another that, at least puts good faith into respecting your freedom, which are you going to choose? So this is going to be a long road. And also, I think the network effects can happen, pretty unexpectedly. We're even still just getting our localization and translation engines locked down, which has unfortunately taken a long time because Angular, the front-end framework that we use, is a little bit technical, but the runtime translation feature that allows you to sort of bundle all the translations into a single build has not been released by Angular yet. You have to actually create a whole new build of the app every time you do an update for every language, which is a huge amount of overhead for developers. And we've already seen a lot of demand in non-English speaking countries, but we just haven't had the human power to do all the translations. And even despite that, we're still getting people globally who are using the app who don't even speak English, just because they want to use apps that respect their freedoms. But actually, Airbnb, I think, took like 7 years to start gaining adoption. Sometimes it does take longer.
So you think that basically you're placing all or most of your chips, so to say, on the fact that you are open source, you are sharing openly what you're doing, how you're doing it, and this is what you believe will convert users to your platform.
Yes, and we're also not necessarily trying to become the next Facebook. This idea that you're going to have one big new freedom respecting network sort of taking out Facebook and Google and all the others. Okay, sure, it would be nice, but it's more about just building a sustainable business, building an app that has an active community and is generating revenue and surviving.
So at some point in my earlier life, I was, so to say, involved in investing in early stage startups. And since you have received funding, especially from professional investors like Medici Ventures, they expect you to grow a lot. I mean, right? That's why they invest at such an early stage.
Oh, absolutely. That's why we're here. Don't make no mistake. I mean, we are here to go to the top, but it's a David versus Goliath task to say that, our measure of success is beating Facebook. Most tech you could build a technology company that has a, $500 million exit, which only has 10,000 users.
Right.
It depending on how you're able to monetize and depending on what your product is. We also have an enterprise product, because anyone can actually take our code and create their own app with our code. So we're pursuing multiple unique business models that is not necessarily the same path as Facebook. So all the signs are pointing towards us being on the right track. If you just look at what is happening in mainstream social media, there's constant uproar about privacy issues, lack of transparency, censorship. It's every day. There's all kinds of demonetization problems. Crypto and blockchain world is doing great, all-time high development activity. I don't focus so much on the price and the markets in crypto. I like to think of it as more of a new infrastructure. And, as long as people keep building, it's going to keep growing. And realistically, the price is going to follow that. So for instance, we use Ethereum and we have an ERC20 token, the Minds token on the Ethereum blockchain. We use that for all of our peer-to-peer payments between users. Users earn our token every day for the engagement that they receive. One token is pegged to 1,000 impressions on the site. So if you earn a token, you can get 1,000 impressions on whatever content you choose to promote. And this is probably our most popular feature. You can also subscribe monthly recurring to other users in exchange for exclusive content and other rewards. And we're playing with other decentralized services. And it's a new infrastructure. That infrastructure has to be free and open source. It has to be at least moving towards being more peer-to-peer and decentralized. And this is just a pretty obvious trend to anyone who's paying attention. We need to be encrypted. We need to be protecting people's privacy. We need to be opting or operating on an opt-out by default basis in terms of surveillance. There's certain principles, like the newsfeed, for instance. On Facebook, you're only reaching 5% of your own followers. Their newsfeed is basically a sloppy mess of posts that you have no idea why you're seeing what you're seeing. Even Twitter's starting to bring in algorithmic stuff. Instagram is bringing in algorithms to the default newsfeed. This is super problematic for basic communication. The original purpose of social media is I subscribe to you and I see your content. You subscribe to me and you see mine. They have betrayed that social contract. They now think that they know better than you know what you want to see, and they also want to feed you ads and they want to monetize better. And I'm not saying that they don't have the right to do that, but I think that they broke the social contract, particularly Facebook. And, for instance, we had millions of followers on Facebook. We still have those pages, but we never post to them because it's a waste of time. We spend years driving traffic from Facebook. A lot of our original user base came from Facebook. This isn't just us. This is thousands of brands. This is a whole industry. The whole media industry took a massive hit when Facebook started changing the algorithms, because now brands could no longer reach their fans, and that affected ad revenue. That put half of an industry out of business. So to rely on these networks for your access to your audience and your customers is suicidal. It doesn't make any sense. It's not to say never use third parties. I mean, there's certainly value to them in certain regards, but to rely on them for your social communication should not be at risk of being disintermediated.
All right. So in that sense, probably you need to, are you attracting businesses to come and open up accounts with you? Because you cannot do that, right? I mean, you need to first get the audience, the end consumer. And the end consumer, so I'm a big fan of, for example, Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary is huge, I think, in social media, in his knowledge and his insights there. At the end of the day, I think he's right that the mass consumer cares about convenience. And so most people don't really think or care about data the way that you and I probably are considering. You probably care even more, way more than me, since you're building this. So I'm thinking you probably have to just make it super convenient and more attractive for people, or find your unique place in people's hearts so they start using Minds.com. Or maybe you have to build your network to be appealing to a particular type of group of people, your niche.
Put it this way. Everybody, it doesn't matter if you don't care about privacy. Everybody cares about reach. If you're a teenager posting memes and your likes start going down on Instagram, guess what? You're pissed. And make no mistake, the youth is unhealthily addicted to their engagement on social media. They're all tracking each other's likes. They're all, oh my God, do you see how many likes she got on that post? And in fact, their mental health is tied to this. And actually, Facebook knows this, and they still continue to degrade the algorithms. They actually know that they're making people depressed. So what we're finding, even though we're a fraction of the size of Facebook and Google, users are finding it easier to be heard and to gain an audience on Minds. Now, you can't achieve necessarily the same scale of network effects. You can't, the biggest users on Minds have 100,000 followers. But for a normal social media creator, it is easier to get thousands of followers on Minds and good engagement and build a community than it is on Twitter and Facebook. because you can earn tokens. You can then use those tokens to get more exposure. There is a super thriving community of artists, crypto people, musicians, journalists. There are brands.
I just wanted to make it a little more practical. So for myself, for example, I have my podcast and I do resonate with what you're saying, that it's not easy to spread my content across like the bigger established social media. So I just created an account on minds.com. I haven't really put in too much time in growing it. Like I basically just built an account. So haven't really posted much, haven't really done efforts there. What would be your advice to me? So you say there's crypto people on minds.com. So what would be your advice to me as a content creator to build a following on minds.com?
So what's your username?
It's George Maloff at this point.
So my advice would be to post a diversity of content, set up your whole channel, post a big combination of images and articles and videos and status posts, and then get your hands on some tokens. You can get your hands on tokens by either engaging with the community and getting people to engage with your content, or you can buy them. And minds.com/token is where, it's basically our revenue is by people purchasing tokens and then using them to advertise or get Minds Plus or get all of our premium features. You can also use them to launch a node, though that is sort of in its early stages. So once you have tokens, you can start getting exposure. And there's a little boost button on your post, and you click boost, and then you decide, I would recommend boosting everything for 5 tokens. You get 5,000 impressions. And you will just start seeing the engagement, and you will likely start seeing higher engagement than you get on Twitter. And this is, a strange paradox, but it's what's happening. You could have 500 followers on Twitter for 10 years and have thousands of posts and literally never grow because they don't really give you an easy opportunity to emerge from the void of all the noise on social media. Most people are not going to pay to advertise, and there's no gamified reward system. So yeah, on Minds, you have a wallet. You just keep track of your tokens. One token is 1,000 views, and that is the best thing that you can do.
So there's 2 ways for me to get tokens. Either I buy them or I can earn them by how exactly? Just by posting content or sharing or replying to other people's content?
You get a small reward just for being active and checking in, but you mostly earn them through receiving engagement, not creating engagement. Too many people, we used to have more rewards based on your activity, but people were gaming it, and we needed to make it more, unique. So essentially, when people upvote your stuff, comment, share, you're earning based on that unique engagement that you receive. You can also earn from making referrals to the network, and we're going to be continually adding in more rewards. So there's a little counter in your wallet which counts down to the next airdrop, and every day there's an airdrop. And so you may only receive like a token or whatnot, or maybe less, or maybe more. But once you start to build up an organic following, you'll start to earn more, and people are really happy with it. They feel like they have the ability to be heard, and this doesn't really exist in other places.
Okay, so maybe the best strategy if I want to test and grow very fast is I buy a little, some amount of tokens. I use that to advertise my content, and I try to make my content interesting and engaging so people react to it, which generates me more tokens, which I, so to say, reinvest, and I get this ball rolling. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I might actually do that because it sounds attractive.
Well, I'm going to. I just sent you 10 tokens.
All right.
So you can use those to play around with it first. It's very interesting, these organic audience. It sort of feels like the way social media used to be, but also never has been. I don't know why Facebook is starting to play with blockchain, and they're probably aware of what we're doing, and they realize that they need to gamify. They keep talking about privacy. It's probably all going to be a manipulation and proprietary and not real privacy, and some sort of strange interpretation of the values of crypto. But our opinion on Facebook's crypto rollout is that essentially, if it's not transparent, if it's not open source, it's not even part of the conversation. It's just our opinion. It's a little bit intense of an opinion, but I think most people in crypto agree with this. I mean, open blockchains are what most people are interested in.
Right. As I was exploring minds.com, it was kind of a weird animal to my eyes as a user because it wasn't exactly like Facebook. It wasn't exactly like Twitter. Uh, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, they all have, so to say, their particular use case, right? On Twitter, it's, so to say, more of the place where people try to look smart, write, stuff in a fancy way, or just are very active in expressing their thoughts. On LinkedIn, it's all about professional engagement. On Facebook, it's some sort of a mixture. And Minds.com is a little different. So it's not just about pictures. It's not just about tweets. It's some sort of a mixture in mind, at least from what I saw so far. So how would you position that? Because would it be that users substitute Twitter for Minds.com? Would it be that they substitute Facebook? Or is it they substitute or comparable to several platforms at the same time?
Yeah, I think that there's elements of many. I mean, we have news feeds. Our subscribe feature is more like Twitter, so you don't have to mutually subscribe. There's not a friend system. Everything is public that you're posting. We do have a groups feature with video chat as well, and in sort of like Slack style collaboration. We host video, we host images and multimedia. You have your wallet, which you can integrate with MetaMask, so you can hold your own tokens with your own keys. And we have a pretty good discovery tool where you can find top ranked content. So there's actually elements of sort of Reddit and, more ranking based on votes and categories as well. So at the end of the day, and I say this a lot, but I think that most apps are sort of becoming the same thing. And maybe that's a bad thing, and we all need to be thinking about how to be different. I think that we're most different because of our crypto system and our reward system, and we're focusing on helping creators earn and get exposure. But if you look at Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, I mean, let's be honest, they're basically all the same app. You can do stories, you can post photos. I mean, they have slight differences. Like you can't do links on Instagram, but generally speaking, they're all getting into live streaming, where we hope to be supporting live streaming late this year. And people just want really good messenger. They want to do stories, they want to post photos. This is what every app is doing. And I think there's sort of a collective consensus that these are the features that people want. Popular demand has sort of naturally caused this to be the case. I mean, it was pretty shameless when Instagram just completely took stories from Snapchat. And then even YouTube started to do it. And everybody's starting to do it. It's like the short form 10-second type little video clips is really a valuable sharing medium now. We also have a blogging feature, which is sort of like Medium. And so, yeah, we do have a number of different elements. So it's a bit of a diverse group of features. But at the same time, like Facebook has a notes feature, which is sort of like a blog feature. So again, it's about giving people as many tools as possible to best express themselves.
That's an interesting opinion an interesting perspective, because honestly, I also had with two of my previous guests on the podcast, so had Clay Collins from Nomics and Jamie Finn from Securitize. They were all about, when you're building your product, your company, focus is the most important thing. And disregards what you're not doing. Focus on 1-2 things, becomes super good.
Well, I hear that. No, I do think that it's very important to focus. We have a pretty big product. Some companies just have like a notifications app or they do bookkeeping, but we are a social network. And social networks have certain demands from the community for what features they require. You need comment threads, you need Messenger, you need groups. These are just staples of social networking. So we're not really going to be moving into the bookkeeping business. We're not going to be moving into calendar business necessarily, though it would be cool to have an events feature. But, this is why the open source community is actually really important too, because we're not necessarily building this alone. All of the most popular open source frameworks get major contributions from their community, and you can leverage the power of developers all over the world. So what we build is based on what the community wants. We're not just going out there and saying, oh, we need to have every feature that Google has. We're saying, what is the community voting on? What do they want to see? And we're going to build exactly what our community wants to see. Because for us to ignore what our community is demanding, that makes no sense. They're the ones who are active user base. So therefore, they should sort of be the loudest voice in determining what we do.
And can the community also contribute with code by building, as it is, for example, in a way with WordPress, right? On WordPress,
yes,
I can create certain sort of plugin which enables some new functionality.
They can. All of our code is at gitlab.com/minds, and anyone can get involved anytime.
Okay. And then how can people make money this way? Why would people do that?
We're going to be rolling out a bounty system for open source contributions, but people can, in the same way people make money on WordPress.
Right. So they have a free version and maybe there is like a paid version.
Right.
And since you mentioned several times that your main differentiation is probably the fact that people can earn tokens, so the system of earning and spending it for advertising, then isn't that kind of what Steemit is doing? And how do you compare to Steemit?
Yeah, there's some crossover. Steemit, the power of your vote is based on how much Steem you hold, which is not how Minds works. On Minds, the power goes to the most tokens go to the people who get the most unique engagement. So everyone's vote is worth the same on Minds. And Steem also runs its own blockchain. They are more specifically just for blogging. They don't have all the social features that we have. But I think that there is an important similarity, and we actually have similar audiences. I think there's value in both platforms. I personally don't like the way that their voting system works, because you are trying to get the attention of these whales. That is the only way that you can earn. It makes more sense to be earning more if you are more popular, as opposed to if you happen to know someone with a lot of steam.
I see. And on Minds?
And on Minds what?
Like, how is it there? How does it compare?
Yeah, I just said your token reward each day is based on the level of unique engagement that you're receiving in terms of upvotes and comments and shares and all of the other factors that I mentioned before. So the more people that engage with your content, the more you are going to earn. Not on Steem. If you go and get the attention of 5 whales and they all upvote, you could have 5 votes and earn, thousands of dollars worth of Steem, rather than someone who gets 100 votes from, a bunch of small Steem users. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess that makes more sense. It's definitely more democratic in a way, if you can use that. And what is your biggest company challenge, that you are facing, and what are your company goals? So I guess, especially now that you have closed a Series A funding, you're after some specific goals. So what are they, and what are your biggest challenges?
We need to get translated. We need to get a bit more stable. We need to become functionally competitive completely with Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. We're not quite there. I think by the end of the year, we're going to be there. It's really hard. They have thousands of developers. We have 7. So it's harder. We have the open source community though, but incentivizing, there's a lot of competition in the open source world for which projects to contribute to, and then so that's a challenge in itself. But the other challenge is sticking to our principles and not giving in to the temptation to spy on people for revenue, not giving in to the temptation. There's all of these temptresses on the internet trying to partner with your company and put ads on your site and help you monetize in arguably unethical ways, or, hey, if you just tap into your users' address books, then you're going to be able to grow faster. I think that all of these conversations need to be had by leaving the principles, even for short-term gain, we're going to lose in the long term. So we need to find ways to make it impossible for, Google has the saying, don't be evil. We need to be unable to be evil. We need to engineer ourselves out of our own way. And, there's this phrase going around called can't be evil. So, and that's why things like end-to-end encryption and crypto and decentralized applications are so important, because then the administrators literally don't even have the ability to get in the way. Now, there's nuance, and it's naive to think that everything is just going to be fully decentralized. We operate in centralized communities. We have teams. A team is a centralized thing. It's a small group of people running a product. Servers are important. You can't just have the whole global infrastructure running through people's phones. Sometimes you need servers, and that's okay, but we need to find that balance where we're weighing towards putting the power into the user's hands. And it's all of this peer-to-peer technology is very new and young, and has not hit the mainstream yet. Look at Bitcoin. It's one of the biggest out there, and it's still not even fully in the mainstream. So there's a lot of work to do, and those are the challenges. But I think the internet really started in this space of decentralization and encryption. Everyone used to host their own email server. Now everyone's using Gmail, and Gmail's reading everybody's conversations and targeting ads at them. So if there's a good alternative, I think people will do it. It happened with organic food. Back in the day when we were growing up, you would just eat food. No one knew what organic was. Then we realized, there's a choice between nasty processed food and local organic food. People start making choices. I'm not saying everybody eats organic now, but I think that if they affordable enough, then yeah, sure, they'll make the healthy choice. I think that's what's starting to happen in technology. Like, there's a choice that is now being brought to people's attention. And it's a healthier choice to choose apps that respect your freedom.
So if I want to, or our listeners want to make this choice of choosing such apps which are open source and respect your freedom and respect your rights, what are the go-to apps that they can use today? Minds.com would be the social network, so to say, the go-to place. What are the other things out there?
That's a good question. So for operating systems, you have obviously GNU Linux, Ubuntu, Debian, Fedora, whichever one you want to use. They're all pretty easy. They feel basically like Mac OS, and I highly recommend people. That is the base layer for a normal person. What is the operating system on your phone and on your computer? Most people are addicted to Mac OS and Windows. You don't need to be. You can easily install Debian on your machine in the same way that you can install any other program on your computer. You put in a USB drive and click a few buttons. It's not hard. Then on browser, you have Firefox, you have Tor, you have Brave, you have others. I use typically a combination of the three of those. For Messenger, there's Signal, there's Wire. These are all open source. There's a cool site called Prism Break, prism-break.org. And that takes you through all of the layers of technology and gives you alternatives. I actually don't think Minds is on here for social, but there's actually other open source social alternatives here. And it shows for documents, for everything, for routers, for servers, for anything you can imagine in tech, what the proprietary options are and what the open source options are. So definitely check that out. And that's where things are moving. F-Droid is a free software app store for Android. There's all these things, and they're still in their very early stages, but the movement is growing for sure.
So are you yourself using any of the big, centralized, intransparent, opaque platforms, or you stick to the ones that you mentioned?
No, I admittedly, all that I use, so I'm off LinkedIn, I'm off Twitter, Facebook. I use Ubuntu. I do occasionally get forced into using Google Drive. I'm trying to get away from it. There's a cool site called Spider Oak, which is like fully encrypted cloud storage. I think they might be starting to work on collaborative cloud stuff. But there are projects working on ethical cloud collaboration tools, and I've probably extracted like 90% of the closed source tech from my daily use, which I'm feeling pretty good about. This year I've made a lot of progress. So, it's just a constant evolution.
And don't you think that if Google, for example, decides to become open source, do you think that it's possible that over time they open source a lot of their development? They have a lot of open source stuff, right? I mean, Android is open source.
They do. That's also a really good question. I mean, Google develops Angular. Google develops Android. Facebook develops React and React Native and GraphQL and, all of these really incredible tools. And there's brilliant people at these companies who are building these things. So the big tech companies understand that open source is essential, especially for base layer infrastructure. So the reason that they open source these more base layer frameworks is because they know that they need the developers on their side if they want them to survive. And you're not going to get developers on your side if they're proprietary frameworks, because people can't just take it and use it for their own purposes. So I've said for a long time, I think it would be great if one of these companies would just open source everything, including their full stack apps. But they don't. And they should. If one of them does, then to be honest, we would probably start leveraging a lot of their software, and it would save us a lot of work. We wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel, and we could start building on top of that. But they're not doing it. They think that they have some sort of competitive edge. There's probably all kinds of IP patent issues, and who knows what the rabbit hole of reasons that they're not being transparent with their main application code. But that's how it is. I think there's probably too many interests involved to allow that decision to get made. But if they're smart, they'll do it, because that is what will keep the communities on their side.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. That's interesting that you say you are going to be using a lot of what they've developed already. And I think that this huge amount of data that they have developed is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, coming back to this topic of convenience, like I'm sometimes also hesitant, or I used to be hesitant, to be honest, of sharing my data, of giving access to everything and anything. But at the end of the day, I really get so much convenience from them that I've decided, like, just screw it. I don't care. Like, I'm sharing everything, because especially now that they're advancing with voice recognition and voice devices, where you can just ask your phone for something, it can reply. They're connecting all of this infrastructure and all of these data points that makes your life easier, so to say. So that is something really cool for me.
Yeah, I agree with you, but think about what you just said. It sort of feels like they pushed you into a corner and you sort of just said, fuck it. And that doesn't sound like a really respectful relationship. I think that it feels like they are bullying people into just accepting the way that they do things, as opposed to if they had said, hey, George, is it okay if we take this? You have the ability to opt out. You have the ability to maybe make it totally anonymized. Whatever types of clear consent and transparency about what they're doing with the data, even after you consent, they try to act like they're giving you consent now and the ability to opt out. But the problem is, first of all, most people never know how to go and find the opt out. It's opt in by default. And even when you opt out, you don't understand truly what is going on with all the data. And they're certainly not compensating you for it. So the whole dynamic of the relationship is backwards. I think that they could be doing what they're doing with all the voice recognition and, look, all the software that they develop is beautiful. It's amazing. We live in the future right now. And in the next few decades, it's going to accelerate to levels where society is going to become unrecognizable. I mean, probably in a decade, most cars on the road are going to be self-driving and automated, or maybe 2 decades. But that type of stuff is going to be happening. You're going to be able to, people are probably going to be becoming cyborgs, like not even joking. So we need to step back for a second and reevaluate the dynamic of the relationship that we have with these companies, because you giving your life data to them is a big deal. And the convenience they give you is also a big deal, and it matters, and it does make your life more convenient. But I just think that before we jump off the precipice, we need to understand that there is potentially another type of relationship that we could be having with technology companies that is so much more consensual and based in a foundation that is just the type of relationship you would have with a friend of yours. It's an actual relationship, not some sort of unevenly weighted power dynamic.
All right. And it's like, we know what's best for you, trust us, so to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. It would be really interesting to see how this all evolves over time. Where can people find you, and where can people learn more about yourself and minds.com?
Yeah, find me minds.com/Ottman, Ottman. I just subscribed to you. And that's where I am. You can message me, comment. Let's keep the conversation going.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. It was really great to have this conversation. I think you're definitely working on some important points. I wouldn't say that I know how this is going to develop, but I will definitely try minds.com, try building an audience, and will update you on how this goes. And if it goes well, I'm definitely going to promote you to other people as well.
All right, good stuff. Yeah, let's hold us to the fire and let's see where you're at in a month.
Will do. Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye.
A couple of things before you take off. First, if you enjoyed this episode, be generous and share it with your best friends. They deserve it, they will appreciate it, and they will be grateful to you. Second, I named this podcast Borderless Crypto because I have been fascinated by the speed with which crypto has been breaking financial borders. Just like the internet empowered us to communicate and share information with anyone, anywhere, 24/7, 365, crypto is empowering people of any country to transact freely, to invest in all sorts of assets, and to access capital to grow their economic status. I'm super pumped to be part of this financial transformation. That is why I'm doing this podcast, to spread awareness about crypto and to accelerate the removal of economic borders. If, like me, you want to see a borderless financial world, help me spread the word about crypto even faster by spending 1 minute to rate this podcast, write a review, and subscribe, so that more people learn about crypto, and in this way, together with you, we accelerate crypto adoption. Finally, if you have any suggestions, feedback, or anything you want to tell me, send me a message on my Twitter handle at borderlessbtc. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you soon again.